Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of January 8th, 2024. Now, I'm recording this on a Monday because the holidays are over and I generally record podcasts on Monday and back on schedule, and happy to be that way. This week's podcast centers around the CES show, and it's not the kind of podcast that you would probably expect from that. It's a little bit different because I'm not at that show I guess it's the third consecutive year I am not attending in person. I attended the 21 show virtually, just like everyone else did. And the 22 and 23 shows I chose to pass on because they were also not completely well staffed. So I would say this is the first time that I'm really not attending a full CES show since I started back in 2006. And that makes me a little sad, makes me a little wistful, but I wanted to explain to all of you why not, and then give you a little bit of an idea of what you could expect from the CES reporting that you're going to find on the internet. The Consumer Electronics Show has gone through a lot of changes over the years. It was a twice yearly show at one point. It centered in Las Vegas. By the 2000s, it was transitioning from largely having to do with audio equipment into something where the latest televisions were being shown, because at that time flat TV technology was very new. That really, I would say, the period from 2006 to 2010 was, in my opinion, the height of the CES show, the hottest time to be attending there. And sadly, I started actually reporting on the CES show in 2013, so I guess I kind of missed out on it from a journalism point of view, but I did have the opportunity prior to that to attend. The show is certainly not what it was, but you can say that because it's literally not what it was. The organization that originally put on the Consumer Electronics Show was known as the Consumer Electronics Association, and the show was not the only thing that they did. They were an advocacy group for, consumer electronics manufacturers. You got to understand, back in the 1970s and 1980s, there was a big change going on from largely American companies to largely overseas companies. Not everybody was super happy about this, and the CEA helped kind of smooth over the tensions between American and, at that time, it was largely Japanese manufacturers. They did a good thing there because I think that overall quality improved from what we were seeing in the 1970s into the 1990s, when we saw mostly stuff that was coming out of Japan. And it paved the way for the larger televisions that we saw later on and a truly global marketplace, which by 2015 we had started to see the rise of really global manufacturers, China coming in, Vietnam, and not just Asian manufacturers, but also by that point it was Russian manufacturers who were doing some stuff, and a resurgence from American companies, which was also very good to see. However, things changed. The show got to the point where it was really unreasonably large at that point. I mean, they were saying that it was about 140,000 attendees, and the truth is, I believe it at that point that it was 140,000 attendees. It was impossible to get a taxi. It was impossible to see the show in one day because it had grown to such ridiculous size, but more importantly, because it was so big that it was taking place all over the city of Las Vegas, and it could take an hour to get from the show floor to, for example, the Venetian Hotel or the Aria, where some of the other exhibits had been. So it was just untenable for a lot of people. They made some changes in the mid-2000s that were intended to kind of curb things a little bit in terms of attendance. And also at that point, I would have to research exactly what the date was, but in the mid-2000s, the Consumer Electronics Association ceased being a thing, and a new organization called the Consumer Technology Association was formed with pretty much the only purpose being to put on the CES show. They renamed the show from the Consumer Electronics Show to the CES show, CES standing for absolutely nothing at that point. It's not a big deal, but whatever. They made a largely empty threat to move the show away from Las Vegas in order to get a better deal from Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, which then kind of bent over backwards. And even, I think, now that there is this new West Hall at the Las Vegas Convention Center, a lot of people are saying that was only built because the people at CTA made them do it. I don't know. I don't have any evidence of that. I'm just kind of spreading a rumor, as it were. But from the point of view of attendance, they started something very sensible. They started requiring that you actually be part of the consumer electronics industry if you were going to attend. It used to be that pretty much anybody with a business card could attend, and you could make a business card for, $20. They could say whatever you wanted, and they wouldn't check up on it. They started really cutting back, and at that point, attendance started plummeting. The other thing they started doing is if you hadn't been attending, that it then started costing you money to attend. Those of us who kept going to the show year after year were kind of juiced in, and we were able to continue attending for the prices that we had been attending in the past. But newer folks were not included in that, and that meant a lot of folks were thinking twice before attending. I think they overcorrected, because the last year that I attended, 2020, the show was really, really a lot emptier. If you go back to the CES coverage that you'll find at the Solid Signal blog, blog.solidsignal.com, you will see some photos that I took that were just flat out empty. And this was before the pandemic, folks. This was in January of 2020, when there should have been a ton of people there. The official numbers were still about 140,000. But I'll tell you, folks, I was there, and there's no way it was 140,000 people. I mean, maybe 50,000, 60,000 on, if you consider the entirety of the 5-day show, which would have meant potentially, 10,000 a day. And that's, that's okay, because they were all industry experts at that point. So obviously the show suffered because of the pandemic. And I try not to talk about that too much. I've been advised that people don't necessarily want to talk about those days anymore. So I don't talk about them much. But you have to admit, I mean, look, between the fact that they went completely virtual one year, the next year they intended to have a show and about half of the people pulled out. And finally in 2023, they got something that resembled a pretty full show. This is the first year, as I said, that they've got what you'd call a full show. It was a real kick for the CES show. And it's a shame too. It's a shame for everybody who depended on that for their income. But enough said on that. The shame of it is that the CES show is, in a lot of ways, it's a relic of a previous age. For years after they cut back attendance, the show struggled to know what kind of thing it was. It became a lot more automobile focused, and they still kept trotting out big TVs, despite the fact that a lot of them never made it to market. And the ones that did were so expensive that nobody really wanted them. In the meantime, everybody was buying their TVs at big box and club stores, which is fun considering that you can get a perfectly good TV there. Not just perfectly good, but probably the best TV you've ever bought for under $750. So this crisis that the CES show has had is the real reason that I'm not attending. You have to ask yourself, in 2024, when we are connected to the internet 24/7, when you can have a virtual press conference to announce your products anytime you want, and you can read all the reviews online, and the product cycles are a lot shorter because everybody's worried that their technology is going to get ripped off. Why do you need an in-person show like the CES show? I mean, health concerns notwithstanding. I mean, if you're one of those folks who thinks that, health concerns are not an issue, more power to you. Then health concerns notwithstanding, why do you even need to travel to Las Vegas and go through all the trouble putting miles and miles on your feet to look at stuff that you've never seen before. The show's tried to retool this year to really focus more on innovations, on the smaller companies that are looking for investors. Great idea, because I think that's an area where people can really get involved. That's a smart place for the show to be at. But does it necessarily kind of coincide with the Solid Signal mission? No, I would say it does not. And that's the real reason that I'm not going. The entertainment value of the show has diminished over the years. It used to be a lot more of a party show. And I will admit that some of the things that were, that made it a party show are things that probably wouldn't fly today in this climate. And, some of those things probably shouldn't have existed then either. Let's be honest. But really the fun party aspect of the show is almost completely missing as far as I can see. You don't see manufacturers hosting lavish parties of any kind. From what I have heard. As I said, I didn't go in person last year, and I'm not going this year. Plus, you have seen a real drop in quality reporting. There were some scandals in the mid-2010s where CNET, which had been doing a lot of reporting, was caught, sort of accepting some favors or something. I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but you can read up about it. And Engadget started taking their place. Engadget themselves, they have cut way back on their coverage of the show. And so you just don't see the amount of journalism that you used to see there. You see some of the major blogs are sending a few people, but, back in the day, as the children say, there used to be, like Engadget had a bus, and CNET had like practically a whole building full of people who were recording and stuff and putting it on live at that time. It's just not there. So for a small outfit like the Solid Signal blog to send 4 or 5 people as we have in the past, it just doesn't make a huge amount of sense financially. And I'm not sure that we'd find anything really to report on that would be as interesting as some of the things we reported on in the past. That said, here's my basic preview of CES based on what I've heard and what I've seen and the, just the reports that I've read. Obviously, it's going to be the year of the AI. You're going to see an AI-enabled toilet. I am not making this up. You're going to see every television manufacturer trying to incorporate AI into the picture settings, which is probably good. Most folks don't really want to spend time calibrating. You're going to see AI featured in every possible way. You're going to see AI in cars, and if that scares you a little bit, maybe it should. You're going to see AI everywhere. Everyone is going to be talking about AI and AI connections because that's just that's 2024. That's the hot buzzword. And again, that doesn't necessarily jibe with the Solid Signal mission, so fair enough. It's something that we're going to pass on. Now, we are going to have a presence at the CES show, as we have had a presence at the CES show, I want to say since 2004, possibly earlier. It predates my time. And if you are interested in meeting with a representative from Solid Signal, serious inquiries only, please call us at 888-233-7563, and I'm sure that we can arrange something if you are on site at the CES show. But reporting, we're not going to be doing any reporting at all this year, and it's a shame. It does make me sad because I had reported on the show one way or the other for 11 years. But everything has to end, and I look forward to the opportunity to report on all sorts of other stuff at the Solid Signal blog, blog.solidsignal.com. That's about it for this podcast. Please do me a favor, as I always say, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It makes me look good to my boss. And as always, shop at solidsignal.com for the latest and greatest to help you live your best digital life. And if you want the kind of customer service that you thought didn't exist anymore, call us at Signal Connect. 888-233-7563 is the number, and we will take absolutely great care of you. That's it for me for this week. Have a good one.